Welcome back, everyone, to the Recovery Edgecast. This is the start of Season 2, and we got some cool changes coming up just to be more consistent and to add some spice here to the podcast. I'm going to introduce my new co-host and new wife, Kayla. Want to introduce yourself?
Hello, friends.
Kayla and me have known each other for, 4 years, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
We just got married a couple months ago.
We did.
And so the show's going to change a little bit, but I think you're going to like it. We're going to try to be more consistent, and having a co-host will help a lot. We're going to have several guests, of course. We're just going to do whatever we can to keep this more consistent. Consistency is the key word of the day.
Yep.
So, after almost a 3-month hiatus, here we are. We're back. I think what we want to do is just kind of talk about ourselves a little bit today. Maybe how we met and how our progress has gone from, day one of us meeting to today. I met you in the rooms. I don't know if that was obvious to everyone or not, but we met. Why don't you tell us how we met? Let's hear your side.
Okay. Well, so the day we met, I had been sober for 3 days, so not a lot of sobriety going on right there. I just came into the rooms, and when I got sober, I just was thinking, like, what do normal people do on a Friday night if they don't drink? And I couldn't come up with anything. So I went to an AA meeting, and then I went to another AA meeting. And at that second one was the Friday night, the New Hope, and the people there invited me out to dinner, and I didn't have anything going on, so I went with them, and that was the first night that we met.
I remember being introduced to you, and I was like, well, this girl is pretty, and I'm not going to talk to her. I didn't want to be that guy. And we shared a lot of our stories in the same meetings. That first year was pretty crazy for you, right? You were really just puzzling life together again, picking up the pieces and stuff. And I remember just having dinner with you sometimes and just talking through a lot of this stuff. Sometimes just talking in the car with you,
Yep.
About life and what was going on with your life. And then my life too. Sometimes there'd be, I'd be like feeling sad or something, and we would talk about it. And you were kind of like that little texting friend, like, how you doing? Like in the morning and stuff like that,
Yep.
It was pretty cool. You, though, started getting busy into service work pretty quickly, I think.
Yeah, I wasn't going to school yet, and I didn't work, and it wasn't like I had kids to take care of, so I had a lot of free time on my hands, and I was very scared of drinking, so I just kept going to meetings, and then people just kept offering me more and more service positions. And so I took a service position just organizing like a ladies' night, kind of like an event planner. And that led to other people noticing that I was taking service work. And one of those people were you, was you. And so, I still remember sitting outside of the New Hope Church, waiting for the doors to open one afternoon, and you telling me that I should go for a secretary. And I just thought, like, oh my gosh, I could never do that job. And so I kept turning you down. And then one day you just like asked me why. And I told you I didn't have the sobriety for it because they had a year minimum. And I was only sober like that day for 90 days. And you said it wouldn't be a problem and had them take a vote, and they voted, home group members voted that I could serve as secretary. And that was like really my first official service position. But, that's been a common, I guess, thread woven between you and I's relationship was that we've done lots of service together, like lots of service on our own too, but a lot of our projects we worked on together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Back then, I do remember we had some service positions open, and I think I was doing I had a secretary service position myself. That was one of my first positions in Denver. So I was like, I would never ask somebody to do something I wouldn't know how to do,
Mm-hmm.
But that was a lot of fun. Those days, I remember how you weren't that shy. I don't think you were kind of you were kind of social,
Yep.
friendly with people, and um, you had started to make some friends in AA, I think. And one thing that I noticed was that you made a lot of friends that were females, and you guys had started to form like a core little, um, I don't know if the right word is group, but you guys were just close friends, and you would come into the meetings together.
The
And
tribe, that's what
yeah.
they are. Yep,
Hmm.
my inner circle.
Yeah. Um, so you got into the deep end pretty fast in AA. And for me, what that means is like you got in and you got busy and you made friends. And that's kind of how I imagine the deep end of AA. Like you just jump all in, and having friends and responsibilities kind of helps keep you afloat. I remember when I used to be bored and I didn't know what I was going to do. Um, and instead of drinking in my early sobriety, I would come home and I would just be like, well, I'm going to stare at this clock for a few hours, uh, try not to drink. And I would listen to podcasts, AA podcasts all night. And then something in my head just told me like, you got to get busy or you're not going to um, maintain your sobriety. And that's when I started to get more involved myself. Um, I got involved by like our friend Joey. We can talk about him.
Yay, Joey.
He actually made me set up chairs and open the meeting in Firestone. This was before you got there
Yep.
because you got to that meeting when they moved locations. And when it was at the smaller place, that's where I met Joey, and he got me busy into, he's like, you're going to open the doors and set up the chairs and make coffee. And I did that. And for me, it helped because I was like, oh my God, these guys are counting on me. I don't want to be that guy to be like, oh, like I can't, because I'm hungover or I drank or whatever. It meant a lot in my head. Um, so after you had a couple sponsors that kept you on that straight path, I think, in your early years, who really helped you.
Yeah.
What kind of restrictions did you give yourself to like keep you safe, or how did your life change?
Well, in the first couple of years, I would say like one of the biggest, I guess, restrictions, quote unquote, was that I took a vow of celibacy for a year and was very, I took that very serious. Now, in the beginning, I was very bitter and angry that I did it, but I was like, oh, whatever, this is what they're telling me to do. I guess I'm going to do it. Um, but as I took service positions and eventually went back to college and, started, I guess, just growing and expanding myself, I really grew up in a emotionally and mentally over the past few years. And so as I started doing that, dating was no longer, I guess, the my primary thought. And I became very successful at what I was doing. And so then it went so well, I decided to take another year of celibacy.
Yeah, I remember that because I was like, oh, she's not going to date for another year. And by then, it was already obvious that I had formed a crush on you. And
Mhm.
um, apparently, it wasn't as secretive as I thought in my head. Like everybody kind of knew that I had eyes for you or something. And I remember just looking around like, are you guys hearing this?
Yeah.
Another year? What am I going to do? I mean,
Well, you
that's
kept yourself quite busy
that's
and
right.
you became DCM and
Hmm.
you got working and did really great things for the district, brought a lot of pride back to the district, brought a lot of events, brought, a lot of things that district hadn't seen for a while.
I think I like to think of it that I was popped into the right place at the right time because it was like during COVID, and I was like, okay, well, I just want to show that the lights are still on in AA and that there's still a place to go and that we're still, active. And I think we did that. We did a lot. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, while you were doing your thing, I was doing my thing
Mhm.
as well, and we were both staying busy with our own recovery and service work, and it really worked out for our benefit later. Um, when we had our friend Joey, who actually did his story on this podcast. We went and visited him in his final days because he had gotten really sick, and
Yeah, that was really hard.
yeah, and that was one of those moments that also brought us together on a more intimate level,
Mhm.
not necessarily just through like service work or anything like that. Because I wasn't like trying to put the moves on you in AA or anything like that.
Nope,
I
you
was,
never hit on me. You were never inappropriate. You never, were disrespectful. Like you always just like gave me the room or the space to grow and get sober and do my thing. But you always let me know that you were there for me. And, that if I ever needed help or needed anything, but um, I think that was one of the kind of like magical things that we've always had between each other was there's these certain I guess like vulnerable but just hard life moments, like when Joey passed away, that we've, always been there for each other, and that made us grow a lot closer, more than just, kind of doing service work and keeping it professional.
hmm I think, well, a couple questions for you though. How important was it for you to not date for those couple years? And how did that change your perspective? Like, how did it help you stay sober now looking back?
Well, I think that I don't know. I'm just one of those girls that something happens to me when I drink. I end up being with these men that are just like horrible for me. And, I had my own part in the toxic equation with it too, and my own struggles with addiction. But um, that was quite my Achilles heel for a good amount of time. And so, just like I needed to get rid of old ideas about alcohol and drugs and whatever else, like men were on that list for me too. And so I really had to learn to love myself first, and not look for validation in the opposite sex, um, and, and work on me before I could even think about introducing anybody else into my life.
Yeah. And when you were ready for that, at that point, me and you had done a lot of work on ourselves. And more importantly, we had done a lot of work for others or just getting out of ourselves by doing service work. Um, the little things in AA that I kind of always like to compare it to the Karate Kid, where you're like, have you seen that? Is that before your time? Like, you're a little
I'm
younger
sure
than me.
saw it and then slept through the second half of it.
Okay, so in the Karate Kid, like he's doing these tasks for his sensei or his trainer guy, and he's like, "Why am I washing a car and all this stuff?" And to me, that's kind of what AA felt like at first. Is like, why am I, making coffee or setting up chairs? Like, I want their secret to getting sober. I
Same.
want I
Yeah.
want that black belt already, and I didn't know how all of that was just building the foundation for making a better man out of me, and it did. I learned some responsibility and accountability and taking pride in what I do, and just understanding that God has me somewhere for a reason, you know, as long as my intentions are always good and I have purpose, then I can feel confident like that. Um, and when we started dating, that was, it was a few months after, almost, I don't know, maybe almost a year after Joey had passed away, or
Joey
six
passed
months.
away in July and we started dating in November.
Okay.
Beginning of November, yeah. But I think, there was these vulnerable times that we were there for each other. I know that there was in sobriety I had to file bankruptcy, and I my bills is something that I used to drink over. And so that was very scary for me to, pick that paperwork and get going with it. Um, and then out of the blue, you called me and you walked me through it and let me know, like, I was just filling out some paperwork that I could put my name there, and I could put, fill out these different things, and how that was very much a financial amends, and how keeping my finances under control would be linked to my sobriety. It's kind of like what you're talking about. Like, I didn't understand then, like, what I was doing. I just was told by my sponsor, like, you need to clean this up and file this bankruptcy. And yeah, and you don't know till later after you do the work that you're like, oh, that is definitely linked. But we had the bankruptcy thing. Your mom got COVID, and we've had lots of conversations on the phone about that. Like with me having a chronic lung illness and being in the hospital, I knew quite well what it's like to be there for weeks on end. And another one was Joey passing away, like I lost a sister when I was a teenager, and I thought I would be fine going and seeing Joey. And he was in-home hospice, and right before I left, I just had all this fear of, it reminded me of when my sister died, and that was a big time where my drinking and drug use kicked up, was after her death, and I was just a teenager myself. But I got very scared, and luckily by then I had enough sobriety to know to call another alcoholic, and you're who I called, and you dropped what you were doing at work and came right over and met me at Joey's and interviewed him there, and then I just cried in the corner, and I was so grateful for you because I just kept thinking, like, I wouldn't want to be there by myself just crying, and like you kept it light and funny and kept things moving along, So yeah, it's those moments really bonded us, I guess.
And I remember you not really being in a corner. You were up there in the front with me, and we were just chatting with Joey, and really just being present with him. It was it was something that I'll never forget. I think Joey. I've said it in meetings before that Joey really taught me how to leave with dignity.
Yes.
You know, and I asked him, I was like, "Why stay sober now?" And he was just like, "I'm gonna finish the race." He's gonna finish the race, and it's like, man, that was I learned a lot from our friend Joey. Um, Sometimes I remember him because I had a reminder on my phone to text him on the day of his mother passing, just to randomly text him. And I would text him, I think his mother had passed a few years ago. And so I would text him on that day and he wouldn't think anything of it. And it was just kind of cool. I was just like, hey, what's up? Hope you're doing good and whatever. And I have a voicemail from him on my phone where he's like, I don't remember what he's saying. He's like, Happy Turkey Day or something, from Thanksgiving. And
Mhm.
he was fun. He was always reaching out, just randomly out of nowhere with his silliness.
Yeah,
But
and I think that when I think about people like Joey, who's had a remarkable impact on my sobriety, and I know for yours as well. I think about how grateful I am that you started this podcast, because we may not have Joey with us, but like we have his story when you recorded it, and can always like go back and hear his voice and hear him tell a story, and I think that's something really special. So I'm so grateful to be doing the podcast with you now, and to be that we can share this and then bring more stories to listeners. I know during the pandemic, when I was newly sober, I'd be cleaning out a room or something, and like house cleaning was something that I would drink through. I just thought it was more fun to, I don't know, mop the floor after a few shots.
mm-hmm.
The floor never got mopped, let's be honest. I made a bigger mess with the cleaning supplies than when I started. But in sobriety, I had a clean house, and turning on the podcast and listening to the stories and hearing the people's, voice and was so soothing to my soul and made me feel not alone at a time, especially during the early days of COVID when we had to isolate. So, I'm just so grateful that you started this and we can hear our friends' stories and share this with them.
Yeah, I'm really grateful for everybody, all the friends who stepped up to do it, who agreed to share their story. And I know it's not for everybody because I'll get rejected every now and then. It's like, okay,
Sure.
but everybody has their own thing. It's okay. But when I do get people, I'm just so grateful for it, and I love hearing people's stories. That's one of the things I missed during the pandemic was just going to the speaker meetings, and I was able to kind of cheat my way and make
Mm-hmm.
my own speaker meeting, and a lot of great. Everybody's typically still around from those recordings. There's just a couple people that didn't or that have passed away, or I think maybe a couple went out. I'm not sure, but after after it was all said and done, a lot changed in AA throughout that landscape, but change is just something that we all deal with. Change is just constant, and together, me and you found a new home group and a couple. Our patterns have changed for AA. I'm happy that I am hitting my Denver meeting a couple times a week now because work has opened back up, and you've been able to find a great sponsor out here.
Yes.
And so, yeah, my sponsorship has changed as well, with our friends out here in our hometown, and life just keeps moving along. And like I said, when I would tell myself when I knew you were going to be somewhere or something, or I was going to meet with you, I was always like, just show up and don't be a bonehead. God will do the rest,
Yeah.
And that's what I just did. And that's what I continue to do. Like as our life changes, it's like, hey, just do the heavy lifting. God will make the wine out of water. Like, that's what I like to say for the miracle part, just carry the water and God will do the rest. Um, so it's funny how things work
Isn't
out.
that what you got the men say in the rooms? Like you're just to like chop wood and carry water or something?
Something like that.
We don't say that in the women's meetings.
You guys don't chop wood?
No. But that's a very like man's quote to do it. But yeah.
Yeah, something
Speaking
like that.
of changes, I'm super excited for season 2 because we're going to bring a couple new things to the platform. We're going to not just have personal stories. We're going to have you can tell, kind of like the AA meetings. And
Yeah. And we've had a couple episodes like this a couple of years ago, but it just, what we want to do is just have little gatherings here and record them. Like just have little meetings with a few of us and just bring up a topic and then discuss it. Why not? It's just something that helps keep the podcast going, I think, and keeps us more consistent and interesting. I've done these in the past before and they're so cool. Like you have like 4 or 5 people sitting around a table and just having a meeting pretty much. Only it's recorded, and that's what's cool because I think the more meetings that we can get on like a recorded platform or any way to distribute or push to people who may not be able to like get to a room or a meeting for whatever reason is smart. We talk about, I don't know, like accessibility and things like that, and people who may not be able to get to certain spots. And I don't know. I'm like, oh, you're just ahead of your time. This is for the future. Meetings online or meetings on podcasts and things like that. There's just something different than doing a Zoom meeting and having to like go in and like have a square on a screen and be called on, or like, how about just one that you can just listen to? We got some cool ideas. I'm excited for this season. And I finally decided that, hey, I think it's time to just call this season 2 already, I'm
the next chapter.
It's
the
like
next
the
chapter in our lives. This is the next chapter in the podcast.
That's right. And I'm so happy for all the episodes I got on the first season. And you can tell where I was just getting started and trying to learn. And I was like, I don't know how to use this microphone and quality microphones and just my skills with talking to people. Like I just had a desire to do it. And I was like, I'm just going to do it. And as further along we got, it got better with everyone,
Well, I'm so glad that you did decide to do it. And I know that this podcast has saved my butt plenty of times. And there's plenty of other people that feel the same way. So I'm so thankful for it.
I'm happy I can, I consider this stuff fun. So I'm happy that I can do something fun that's helpful. And I'm really grateful for the people that have came on to share their story because that's what makes the podcast, it's awesome. So that's me and you. And we just got married a couple months ago.
Yep, we got married at the church that our old home group was at where we met.
That's right.
So that was very magical.
Yeah. It was, everybody just thought that we were perfect together. They were like, oh, it's about time and a match made in heaven and whatever. And it's been so cool to have everybody's support. But it's just different when you have so many friends in AA who just see you on another level, in a different, like in a different dimension almost, because they get that side of your story and they know how far we've come, like just not drinking anymore, of course, doing fun or doing like helping people with our evenings or something, just things I would have never imagined doing. I don't know, 10 years ago, I'd be like, what, so it's so cool to grow with people who are also growing. It makes things, I don't know, keeps it magical. And I always tell people, if I wasn't having fun in AA, I wouldn't be in AA. There's no way, So this has been fun. Being married to you, of course, has been fun, Kayla. And I'm really excited for this chapter of our lives and this podcast. It should be a lot of fun.
Yay.
So, any final words before we depart from episode 1 here?
Well, I was just thinking if anybody is listening to this and is interested in telling their story or wants to be part of one of our discussions when we bring in different topics or has an idea, like they should reach out to either you or I. And, you can tell them where they can do that at.
You can email me at recoveryedge2020@gmail.com. Wherever you get this podcast, you can contact me as well. I should have a better way of communication soon. And I would love to if you're not from Colorado, and I don't really know you, that doesn't mean I don't want to hear your story. Reach out to me and we'll have a more easier way of communicating with us. So we're looking forward to hearing from you and hearing your story. And I'm really excited for it. So,
yeah.
All right. That'll do it. I think we'll wrap it up now. And we should see you guys soon. We won't take a 3-month hiatus this time. I got a few guests lined up, and so it shouldn't be too long. I'm really excited about them. Some new voices and some voices that I've wanted to hear from for a long time. So I know you're going to love them and be excited for it as well. So that'll be a wrap.
Perfect.
All right. Thanks, love. Thanks for checking out this episode of the Recovery Edge podcast. If you'd like to help support the show, you can Venmo us at Recovery Edge, and your donation will go into helping server costs and other podcasting fees. It also helps us grow the show, so we appreciate it, and thank you very much.